My name is Aveline, and this is a story about how my own cousin tried to make me feel like I did not belong in a place where I had every right to be. But then someone came in who she could not scare, and everything slowly started to change. Have you ever felt so embarrassed in front of people that you just wanted to look down at the floor and disappear? Even people who do not know you are watching, and you feel small inside. Now imagine the person doing that to you is someone who used to play with you, laugh with you, and even braid your hair when you were little. We did not grow up in a bad or messy home. Our family was warm and full of happy moments. We had Sunday barbecues where everyone laughed together. We wore matching pajamas at Christmas. We had birthday sleepovers with games and stories. Everything looked perfect from the outside. But not all pain is loud. Some pain is very quiet. Some pain feels like always standing behind someone else while they shine in front of everyone. That person was my cousin Velmira. She was always the best in the family. Everyone was proud of her. She went to law school when she was only 22 years old. She gave big speeches before she even turned 30. By the time she was 32, she was working as the head of PR at a huge tech company called Very. She always looked perfect, like someone from a magazine. I was not jealous of her. I just learned to stay quiet and small next to her. When we were younger, I once came home very happy because I won an art award. I worked hard on my painting, and I felt proud. Grandpa smiled and said, "You are getting there." But then Velmira laughed and said, "She only painted a bird. I made a full charity logo last month." That moment hurt me more than anything else. 15 years later, I was 30 years old, and I felt nervous again. I was standing in an elevator going up to a company called Holston & Root. It was a modern startup inside a big old building in Brooklyn. I had practiced what I wanted to say many times. I checked my clothes again and again. I carried my portfolio carefully and made sure there were no mistakes in it. I was not perfect, but I worked very hard. I taught myself how to design. I built my own path step by step. I had 10 clients. I created a full design for a women's shelter, and it even got attention across the country. I had something real to show. When I sat in the waiting area, I felt out of place. Everyone else looked perfect. They had shiny shoes, neat clothes, and expensive bags. They looked confident and ready. I sat quietly on the edge of a bench, feeling like I did not fully belong there. Then the door opened. Velmira walked in. My heart dropped. She looked exactly the same as I remembered. Calm, confident, and perfect. Her blouse shined under the lights. Her hair was tied neatly. Her heels made sharp sounds as she walked across the floor. She did not even look at me. Not even for a second. She walked straight to the front of the room, smiled brightly at the panel, and sat down. That is when I understood something important. She was not there to be interviewed. She was one of the judges. She did not say hello. She did not smile at me. She acted like I was not even there. After a while, an assistant came into the room with a tray of coffee. She gave 1 cup to each person waiting. When she came to me, she stopped for a moment. Velmira gave a very small shake of her head. The assistant moved on. No coffee for me. I did not say anything. I just held my folder tighter in my hands and tried to stay calm. Then I heard Velmira's voice. It was quiet, but I could still hear it clearly. She still dresses like she shops at thrift stores. Someone next to her gave a small laugh. I looked down at my blazer. It had a loose thread on one shoulder. I forgot to fix it, but it was clean. It was mine. And I reminded myself that I was not a child anymore. This was not a family game or a small joke. This was my chance, and I earned the right to be there. Soon the interviews started. One by one, people stood up and introduced themselves. They talked about their big schools, their jobs, and their achievements. Everything sounded perfect. Then it was my turn. I stood up slowly. "My name is Aveline Kaur," I said. "I build things that help people who are usually not invited into places like this." For the first time that day, Velmira looked at me. I walked forward and placed my resume in front of her. She did not look at me. She only glanced at the paper for a second, and then pushed it away to another person like it was nothing important. She did not ask me anything. She did not say a single word to me. I stood there for a moment, waiting, but nothing happened. So I went back to my seat. It felt colder than before, like all the warmth in the room had disappeared. Then I heard someone behind me whisper, "She works in UX?" "Really?" A quiet, mean laugh followed. I did not turn around. I just sat still. But I could feel Velmira smiling behind me, and it hurt deeply. I knew this feeling very well. I had felt it many times before. It was the feeling of being invisible. The feeling of not being taken seriously. I remembered my first big project. I made a website for a youth shelter all by myself. I worked on everything, design, structure, and building it. I was very proud of it. I showed it to Velmira once. She only nodded. She did not smile. She did not give advice. A month later, her company showed a project that looked very similar to mine. The ideas, the design, even the words felt the same. When I asked her about it, she smiled and said, "Ideas float. You cannot own them." But I knew the truth. And now I was sitting in front of her again, feeling the same kind of hurt. One of the panelists, a man named Malric, leaned back in his chair and asked, "Why do you think you are ready for something this big?" I was about to answer, but Velmira spoke before I could. While I was speaking at a big event in London, she said, Aveline was still uploading her work to Canva. People laughed. The old pain came back, but this time something inside me felt different. I did not move. I did not react. I stayed calm on the outside. But inside, something became stronger. I did not come here to beg anyone for approval. I came because I earned my place. So I stood up again. I did not say anything. I just walked out of the room, down the hallway, and out of the building. The cold air hit my face as I stepped outside. I kept walking for a few blocks until I found a small, quiet cafe. It looked old and simple, like it had been there for many years. Inside, it smelled like burnt coffee and something soft and hopeful. I ordered a drink, even though I did not really want it, and sat in the corner. I looked at my resume in my hands. In my mind, it felt like it had a big red stamp on it that said, "Not good enough." I opened my phone. I had written a message earlier to quit my last client. I thought about sending it. My fingers stayed over the screen. Then I stopped. Not today. I deleted the message. Right then my phone buzzed. It was a message from a company called Lucran Studio. "Can you take a call today? We saw your work and we are interested." I stared at the screen. Then I stood up slowly. I put on my coat, and I made a decision. I was going back. I walked back to the same building. I passed the same front desk and walked into the same place that tried to make me feel small. The receptionist looked surprised to see me. "I need to speak to the panel again," I said calmly. She hesitated and said, "They are busy right now." I nodded and replied, "I understand. That is why I am here." She looked at me for a moment, then picked up the phone. After some time, she told me I could go in. 10 minutes later, I walked back into the room. Everyone looked at me again. No one smiled. Malric leaned back and said, "Did you forget something?" Velmira gave a small laugh and said, "You really do not know when to stop." I stepped forward and placed a small folder on the table. "I am not here to beg," I said. "You missed something." One of the panelists looked confused and asked, "What is this?" I looked at them and said, "This is my real work. The work that your company is still using." Malric was about to say something, but suddenly the door opened. A man named Lucran walked into the room. He was not wearing a suit. His shirt was simple, and his style was relaxed. But he looked confident and strong. Everyone in the room turned to look at him, like something important had just arrived. He walked past the panel, and he walked right past Velmira. He came to me and gently placed his hand on my back. His touch was calm and kind, like he wanted to make sure I was okay. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. I took a small breath and said, "Only me." Velmira's face suddenly became stiff, like she was shocked or upset. Lucran did not look at her at all. He didn't even blink in her direction. Instead, he turned and looked at everyone else in the room. "Interesting," he said in a quiet but strong voice. "Some of you know me well enough to send me your work and ideas. But you don't know me well enough to recognize the person whose ideas you have been copying." Malric slowly stood up halfway from his chair. He looked nervous. "Sir, if we had known." "Know what?" Lucran asked calmly, without raising his voice. "Leela is the one who built the system that helped you win your last 2 contracts. That her name is written on every document you just ignored." Then he opened the folder in his hands. Inside were many papers. My name was written clearly at the top corner of every single page. There were screenshots of my work, pieces of code, and signed papers that had the company's official stamp on them. He turned to Malric and looked straight at him. "Tell me," he said, "when did embarrassing talented and hardworking people become something your company does?" No one said anything. The room became very quiet. It was the kind of silence that feels heavy, like something important is happening. Rowena slowly picked up the papers and began to look through them. As she read, her face became pale. She looked confused and worried. This isn't in our records," she said. "No," I said quietly but clearly. "Because someone made sure it wasn't. Lucran nodded slowly. Let's talk about that, he said. Then he placed one last paper on the table. It was an HR record from the year 2019. My name was written on it. Under my name there were comments like, does not listen well, not a good fit for the team, and difficult to work with. Each comment had a time and a person's login name next to it. Lucran looked at Velmira. Was that you? He asked. Velmira's face lost all its color. She looked scared now. I was protecting the company, she said tightly. We can't just give jobs to girlfriends. I looked at her calmly. I did not feel angry anymore. I just felt clear and strong. The only unfair thing here, I said softly, was you trying to protect your position from someone you didn't think could be as good as you. Malric moved a little in his chair, like he wanted to speak, but Lucran raised his hand to stop him. Let me ask again, Lucran said as he looked around the room. Who here actually read her resume? Who asked about her work, her projects, or her experience? No one raised a hand. The silence in the room became even heavier. It felt like everyone suddenly understood what they had done wrong. Then Rowena spoke again, this time more gently. I think we owe Leela a real apology, she said, and a role that truly matches the work she has done. Lucran turned to me and said, your choice. Do you want the big corner office? I looked at the glass office where Velmira used to sit. It looked very nice from the outside. It had big windows and everything was neat and perfect. But it also looked empty, like nothing real happened there. I shook my head slowly. No, I said. I would rather sit near the developers. I want to be close to where things are actually built and created. The HR director nodded and began writing something down. You will be reinstated, she said. You will be a full-time lead strategy consultant. Velmira opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. She looked around the room, hoping someone would support her or say something for her, but no one did. Soon, security came and gently asked her to leave. As she was being walked out, she turned back one last time. You really think you're better than me now just because he chose you? She asked. I looked straight at her and answered calmly. No. I just stopped standing in your shadow. About a week later, I moved into my new workspace. It was not fancy. There were no glass walls and no beautiful city view. It was just a simple, strong desk placed near the engineers. Around me, keyboards clicked all day like little heartbeats. People were busy building things, solving problems, and turning ideas into real work. One day, I found the old resume they had torn up before. I carefully taped it back together. I did not keep it as a prize or something to show off. I kept it as proof. Proof that I had been ignored. Proof that I had been pushed aside. Proof that I had been treated unfairly. And most importantly, proof that I still came back. Above that resume, I pinned a small note I had written 3 years ago. I wrote it during a time when life was very hard. I didn't have enough money, and I felt like hope was too expensive to hold on to. The note said, no one sees the quiet builder until the building stands strong. 2 weeks later, a young woman walked past my desk. She was holding her resume tightly, like she was afraid it might fall apart. She looked nervous. Our eyes met for a moment. She did not smile, but she stopped walking. I gave her a small nod, and we went into a room together. Later, she came back to me. Her face looked different now, a little brighter. They called me back, she said, for the job you told me to apply for. I smiled at her. You deserve it, I said. She held her resume a little more firmly now. Her shoulders straightened. She stood a little taller. It was like something inside her had become stronger and more steady. And maybe that was the real ending of this story. Not revenge. Not a fancy title. Not a big office. But something much more important. Freedom. Freedom from staying silent. Freedom from waiting for someone else to say you are good enough. Freedom from making yourself smaller, just to make someone else feel bigger. Velmira used to say that I would always be beneath her. But the truth is, I was never beneath her. I just needed to stop standing in her shadow.